Hey folks, hope you're well. Max from ToneShift, great to see you today. Today I thought we'd take a look at another Line 6 product. So I want to take a look at the Line 6 Pod Go. Now the Line 6 Pod Go was released back in 2020. I believe they unveiled it at the NAMM show back then. And it's basically something that sort of bridges the gap between the HD product and the HX product. It uses HX technology. However, there are a few caveats with that. So what I thought we'd do is go through some specs on it. We'll get it plugged in. We'll make a patch. You can have a listen to it, see what you think. And also in this video, we've got a few clips of me gigging last weekend, and there's one or two people wanted to see that. I have to be a bit careful because of copyright and things like that. So, but it is on here, so I'll slip some of that in. Okay, and don't forget, if you're liking this kind of stuff, folks, give us a thumbs up, subscription, share it with your friends if you think they might be interested. It all goes a real long way to help out the channel. We are just starting out. Don't forget, if we get to 1,000 subscribers, we're giving a ToneX away. All you need to do is in the description below, just comment ToneX, that's it, and subscribe, of course. If I can't see you, you can't win. Straight up, that's it. Okay, let's have a look at this then. This sounds just like a Helix, which is why I got this particular unit back in the day. It was a great idea as a backup, or maybe to a pub where there wasn't much room. Yeah, I'm not as convinced that's a thing anymore, you know, but it is good for that, but it does so much more. Some people call it a baby Helix, you know, and it's not a bad description. So let's have a look at the Line 6 Pod Go, shall we? This, like I said, this version that I'm running here is the wireless version. However, they're both identical, other than this one's got a built-in wireless interface, and it uses the the Relay GT2, I think this one, which is basically something that Line 6 have had in their catalogue for quite a number of years now. It's okay, it does its job, it's fine for what this particular unit was meant for, really. So, as we can see, just looking down at the unit here, we've got a lovely big screen there that shows us currently what patch we're on, etc., etc. You'll see you've got 8 buttons with coloured LED rings, and the pedal, of course, for expression. You know, you can use that for volume, wah, or any other parameter you want to set that to, you can do. I'll show you the back of the unit in a minute. In fact, we'll bring a picture of the unit up. At the back, we've got the power with a switch, which is good. We've got USB-B standard. Then we've got a headphone jack. We then have, if I can see, yeah, we've got amp out, which bypasses the, I'm not sure where that's tapped, but we'll go through that. So a direct to amplifier. We've got then the main out. We have then got the effects loop, which is stereo, expression pedal number 2, and standard guitar input, which also doubles up as the charger for the actual the GT2, which I'll just show you there. So this is the actual device that you get, and that lives in there when you're not using it. So it does need to be plugged into the normal guitar input for charging. Let's take a look at the top of the unit. So from the top, obviously, you can see it's got a big bright colour screen there. Moving across, we've got a couple of buttons here, an encoder, and then we've got the main volume. If you've got the wireless version, you will also have a wireless receiver unit here. Underneath the main screen there, you've got 5 encoders which do different things depending what's on that bottom row. They're also push encoders, so you can click them and it will do different actions depending what's happening on the screen. As I said, we've got the home button and the view button, so you can have basically a gig mode, so it's basically mirroring the Footswitches there at the moment, or you can have it in a more edit-friendly mode, so you can see which parts you're editing, and on that you would select basically the top encoder to select which block you'd like to change, and then from that select which distortion you want, for example, or you can press the encoder button and you just get a list there, press the button, and there you go. Pressing the buttons on the side, if there are 2 pages to the block that you have up, it cycles through the pages. So perhaps if you're on the amp, you might find that there's even more than 2 pages. As you can see, there's 3 on this particular AC34. Yeah, so you've got your standard controls there. Then you move over to your slightly less common ones, not including those, they're common, but then you have got your sag, your hum, your ripple, your bias, and your bias X, of course, they're HX features. So yeah, that's that. Then in the other view, that's gig friendly. So that's showing you what individual switches do at the moment, foot switches. So for example, that's a transistor tape on and off. It's pretty straightforward, as line 6 stuff is, you know, it's pretty straightforward to use. What should be said about that? You've got your main volume out, that controls the headphones and the main outs. Just a big old button there to turn, so you can always get to it. You've got... Ooh.
Can you see left through those tears? Don't you know you're worth your weight in gold? Can't believe that you're alone in here. Let me warm you against the cold. Won't you count with a hard-hearted man who only gave half of what he got? Made you wish that you had never been born. Well, that's a shame, you got the light. Hey, you with a sad face, come to my place, live it up. You beside the dance floor, what do you cry for? Let's live it up. Well, if you smile, the walls that fall down, all people in this pickup joint. And if you laugh, you'd level this town. It's lonely girl, just a point. Hey, you with a sad face, come on to my place, live it up. You beside the dance floor, what do you cry for? Let's live it up. Just answer me the question why. You stand alone by the phone in the corner.
Then you've got an indicator just here, tells you whether or not the expression pedal is currently being used as a volume pedal or an expression pedal for the wah on this particular patch. So, and of course it's a toe switch underneath there that changes that. Okay, nice, good steel pedal. It's not plastic. The top of this, by the way, is all metal. The chassis is made of some kind of polycarbonate plastic. I've had no issues with it. It's reduced the weight quite significantly on it, so I don't think we need to moan about that. So let's just move down. Now, on the other units, you'll find that they're capacitive, touch sensitive. Pod Go, they're not. So that feature doesn't exist. Obviously, it's quite an expensive thing to implement, so that's not there in this particular unit. But I'm going to start at this side. So we go, the first one we'll do is actually this one that's flashing at us that says tap and tuner. So that's your tap for your delays, your choruses, etc. Anything you want to do time-wise, you can tap into that on that button. So it gets a lot of use through the evening. However, if you press and hold that button, that brings up a tuner. And there are 2 styles of tuner. I've not got a guitar plugged in at the moment, so you won't see them, but you'll be able to see there. You can either have, sorry, there's 3 styles, my mistake. You can have a fine tuner, so that it's quite a detailed level. a coarse tuner, so not quite as detailed. And then, of course, you've got the strobe tuner, which, yeah, that's the one I tend to use. It's really easy to see on stage. It doesn't seem to jump around quite as much. I like it, so that's the one I use. You have the option to mute the output or bypass. I mute it when I've got the tuner on. And then you can also change the reference pitch. So rather than have 440 hertz, you can go anywhere between 425 and 456. So great range there, just to change your reference tuning if you want to. And to get out of that, you can press any of the buttons and it'll just bring you back into this mode. Now then, the other button we have is mode, edit and exit. So when you're using this as a mode button, you'll see then the layout change slightly on the actual buttons. So they change colour and they're not all lit up anymore. And what we see on this screen is basically this section of the layout. So this basically deals with the 6 foot switch buttons here. So this is one of the great features of the HX products, I think, and they're called snapshots. We know what they are. Basically presets within presets or scenes within presets, where you can make endless amount of changes to your patch. You can't change the effect unit, you can't change the amp, etc. You can change the IR, I believe. However, you can change all the settings within it. So you set that snapshot up with those particular settings that you'd like. So you go back into this mode, and let's just say, for example, you wanted this to be a faster delay or whatever. You'd make that change, and then you'd save it as that. And then when you went back to that, you would have that as your snapshot A. And you've got A, B, C, and D. So you've got 4 snapshots, which for me is perfect because that's how many I would use. We'll get a bit further into that later on when we do this software. So yeah, so that's 2 different modes, and then we'll just go back to this mode again. And also we can go up banks, and this is how we get to different presets. So on the night, you might say, oh, well, I'm going to use, this is my first track, it's in this, and you can name all these and customize them as well, so you can see what they do, change the color of them, that will be represented on the buttons. So you might have, going through, you might have a yellow, a green, amber, and a red for heat scale or gain scale, whatever it is that you do. You work that out yourself, and you can name them, etc. So it won't be seamless patch switching if you use it that way. It just doesn't work. It doesn't do it on this one. However, if you use snapshots, they are the transparent changes, so you won't be able to hear any of the changes, provided they're not too different. So yeah, really useful to have snapshots, and we'll go through them, like I said, a little bit later on.
Saving it up for Friday night. The other soldiers, yeah, the soldiers, I'm sorry.
So also then with mode, we had this mode. So this is basically see this as a pedal board. And as you can see, you've got 6 different pedals, all 6 different foot switches, all doing different things. For example, that switches your reverb on and off, or that might switch your trem on, your parametric EQ, an effects loop there. So if you've got something in the loop, maybe you can switch that on and off. We've also got, this one's currently set up as a Minotaur or a Clon, and a compression there. So, and they're all color coded in a similar way to Line 6's design ethos, really, that they've been using for a long time now. And yeah, so everybody seems to understand now, their drives are always this orangey color. Then same for the reverbs of that colour. The modulations tend to be blue, etc., etc. You can see that. The delays are green. There's not one on that, so it's not a great... There you go. Oh. So this one's got a transistor tape, for example, just there. So there's that. Dead straightforward, really, isn't it? That's how that works. That's the outside of the unit there. And as you can see, lots of features that punch quite a bit above it's what it's actually costing. Like I've said, I think the cost of this is, I want to say it's $399 new. It comes on offer quite often. Second-hand market, there's plenty of these around. $250, $260. I see them at. Obviously, your mileage may vary on that. But please have a look. If there's something you're interested in, please have a look. They're well worth a look, and you probably won't lose any money on a second-hand one, that's for sure. So, let's have a look at the software and have a listen to what this thing can do then, shall we? Well then, folks, so what I want to do is just really walk through a patch with you, and we'll just use an arbitrary patch on the Podgo. It can be any of these, doesn't really matter. I'm going to use the AC34 just because it's got a delay in, and we can have a look at a delay as well. So what we'll do, we'll start in right at the beginning of the patch just to show you the input stage. So again, this is the wireless one. You'll find the standard one doesn't have obviously the wireless option. That's the only difference on these particular two units. So just so you're aware of that. So my option here is guitar and wireless in. I can have it as just guitar. I can have it as just wireless, whatever I need to do there. Or I can have it as USB 3 and 4 return for reamping. We're not going to do that today, but just so you know, you can do that. Also on the input, there's actually a gate, and it's a variable gate, so you can make changes to that as you like to use. Yeah, so if that's the kind of thing, if you use a heavier tones, you may need something like that, but it's something that's not always advertised. But anyway, so yeah, so that's the input. And if you look here, there's some blocks just to the side here. Now, what this enables is you to assign these to a switch or snapshots. So you can switch the gate on and off per snapshot as you wish. So it actually means that you've got more control over the function of this and more blocks essentially than what first appears to be the case. So initially you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You've actually got 12 blocks that you can use for varying things. And now they're not all, you can't change a lot of them. I will go into that. There is a workaround for this. So for example, the volume pedal is always the wah pedal is always going to be a wah. Now there are various wahs you can choose, but it always needs to be a wah pedal. This is in standard. Volume, so that can be a volume pedal. It can also be a gain block, which raises or lowers it as a set gain. It can be a panning device, or it can actually be a stereo widener. So a few options there for that pedal, but it has to be one of those. You can't change it for a delay, for example. Now then, the effects loop, it can either be a mono FX send or a stereo FX send and return. So that's worth knowing about. That always has to stay as the FX. So that's kind of if you're not using an external, that's kind of a wasted block, in my opinion. However, again, there's a workaround for that. We'll come on to that at some point. Let me just continue with the ones that are fixed. So your amplifier is also fixed. That can be a preamp or an amp. And the cab block is also going to be a cab, a legacy cab, or an IR. Okay? And it uses the same IRs as all the rest of the HX family. Okay, now then, you've also got the EQ, which is also fixed. It can be any of these EQs, but it is fixed as an EQ. And at the end of the actual signal chain, which is serial, by the way, so there's no parallel processing happening on this. You can't add another amp, and you can't, treat it in the same way as perhaps you could a HX Stomp. However, most people probably only want a serial signal chain anyway. Yeah, sorry. So on the main output, you also can change the level via snapshot or particular foot switch, including externals. And you can change the pan as well if you wanted to do that. Again, that's not really documented, but it's a feature that is available on this. And okay, so they're the fixed blocks, which leaves us 4 fully assignable blocks. And by the way, they're fixed in that they have to be those particular type of effects. For example, the EQ needs to be an EQ of some description, as you can see on the screen. At the moment, it's a parametric EQ. It could be a tilt, for example. It could be a 10 band. It could be the Mesa Boogie Cali. So yeah, they need to be what they are. So they're fixed as the functions are fixed. This is the best way to describe this. So the function's fixed, so that needs to be an EQ. That needs to be a cab or an IR. That needs to be an amp or a preamp. Like, you get what I'm saying? They're fixed in that way. However, we can move them. So we can move them around freely within this serial chain. And not just pre or post, you can literally put them wherever you want. If you want your EQ right at the beginning of the chain, there you go. If you want it there and use it as a boost or whatever, then there you go. You can move that back there. You can move your loop out the way there, whatever you need to do. So the functions are fixed, however, they are freely movable within that signal chain. So it's quite a flexible signal chain.
But I don't need no other lover. Well, something in her style that shows me I don't want to leave her now. You know I believe in how. You're asking me where my love goes. Well, I don't know. I don't know. You stick around now, it may show. I don't know. I don't know. Something in the way she knows.
Moving on to the stuff that's not fixed. Now, once we click on this particular one, so Footswitch 4 currently here, this can be any of these. So it can be none. That means nothing. It's not doing any processing. It can be a distortion, and Line 6 bundle distortions and overdrives into the same things as well as fuzzers. And then you can see there we've got that wrath of, there's a few obvious omissions in there. For example, prize drive's not in. Whether that'll ever come to Podgo, I don't know. Most of the stuff that I use is in there. In fact, all of the stuff I generally use the boost, the clon, the screamer. Not much else within this, really. You know, I mess around with the air apparent. You haven't got the tone sovereign in here. It's just a little bit too much for this particular unit to do. So there are your drives, but if you didn't want an overdrive, you could have a compressor if you wanted one. And there's loads of compressors in there, as you can see, all from the HX family. It could be another maybe you want another EQ. We've already looked at the EQ stack there. Do you want a modulation in there? I mean, the modulations, once again, absolutely fantastic. You've got the ones you need. You know, the main ones are in here. There's not much missing. You know, and to be perfectly honest, this Dimension was always a favourite of mine. I still use it quite a lot now. It's so easy to set up, and you can set that to synchronise. Or you can do that with most of these. But yeah, you've got your trems, your vibes, your choruses. You've got your rotary speakers. You've got your reel-to-reel stuff. You know, and it's really, really well equipped. This unit is at this point, and they are first-class effects. If you've used any of the HX family of products, you'll be fully aware of that. Now then, we could put a delay in there. As you can see, the full suite of delays are in there. Other than, and obviously the emissions are going to be your pitch delay, you know, which ones am I trying to say? The polyphonic pitch, stuff like that, that's not going to be in here. As it is, you're probably not going to be able to get the feedback and things like that came out a little bit later in HX. It's just not quite up to doing it. Where the HX Stomper's got a bit of an advantage, it can run it. However, it does take a lot of DSP, and you'll find with the HX Stomp, if you're using the pitchy stuff, the poly stuff particularly, you'll soon run out of DSP. This is, I think, a little bit more forgiving on the DSP side, especially because it's got those fixed thing, that core. It's got the core elements of your tone fixed. So as a beginner moving into this, you'll find it much easier to get a really, really good sound. And I'm going to point you in the direction of some absolutely fantastic starting points. I'll give you a demo of them in a minute. If you were going to actually get one of these and you wanted a head start, then I've got something. I will point you in the right direction. So yeah, so you've got your delays there. You know, you've got your simple delays, you've got your analog delays, you've got your glitch, you've got all your Adriatics, which is a fantastic delay if you've not, if you're just starting into this thing. There you go. That's the kind of thing. In any case, so yeah, there your delays. Where were we? We were changing that, wasn't we? So there your delays. We've also got all the reverbs. And once again, you can see there's some obvious emissions there. These are all stereo, by the way, so there's no... A lot of the time on the HX, you'll find that the stereo and mono are counted twice. No, it's not real, is it? The one I use, dynamic play, it's there. So again, your mileage may differ. You've still got these big ones. You've still got the Ganymede. You've still got Searchlights and Plateau, which were quite late on Hot Spring. Sorry, they were all quite late in. However, they have been ported over, or not ported over, because it's all part of the same ecosystem now. So they're available if you want them. Now then, pitch. We're going to be limited on pitch because poly pitch is just too much for this particular unit to do. However, you can see you've got a lot of the synthesizers, you've got the pitch whammies and all that kind of stuff that, you know, I know a lot of people really enjoy from the HX. And of course, the bonus with this one, if you did want to use something like a pitch wham, you've got the built-in expression pedal, so you've not got to have then another piece of kit to make it work, you know. And if you get creative with this piece of kit, I really do think that it is a fantastic starting point if you wanted to have a taste of Line 6. Again, second-hand market, it's a great place to go and look for something like this. And you might even get a wireless version for £250, £300 perhaps, if you want to invest that kind of money, depending on what you're going to do. But for local gigs and things, there's nothing wrong with it. On the filter side of things, again, we've got most of them here. You know, we've got the auto filters, the mystery filters, some of that early stuff like the voice box, the Q filter, and the V-Tron was all really, really popular effects back in the day. Comet Trails there, another one, that was another interesting effect. So as you can see, these freely assignable blocks and these editables are all quite well equipped. You know, we can get to pretty much everything that we can get on the Helix, we can get out of this unit. Okay, there are a few that are missing, but not many. And of course, at the end, we can also have a looper. So we've got a 6-switch mono looper there. We've got a single switch mono looper. Then we've got a stereo looper and block. So that's a quick run through what's available. Let's just have a quick look at this change, shall we, on this AC30.
I won't give you both night and day. Love satisfying along the way. Feel like me. Feel like making love. Feel like making love. Feel like making love. Feel like making love to you. If I had those golden dreams of my yesterday, I will wrap you in my heaven, nearly dying along the way.
So this starts with a wah, which would be a good place to start if you wanted one. You've got to have one, so you might as well start with one. Again, you can go through any of these, and if you've got one of these, try them out. Next, pedal along. Oh, and that switches on and off from toe switch, by the way, and you can see that it's got snapshot bypass, and it's also got expression. Sorry, I'm right clicking there. So I'm right clicking on that device and it's bringing up this menu. The bypasser sign is expression toe switch. So that's the end of the toe switch. You go right to the end, press it down, and then it disengages the volume pedal and it engages the toe switch. I'll just demonstrate that on this one here. And you'll see that changes colour. And that is that, and you'll be able to see it engages that, and that's the position. And then it disengages and it brings the volume in. So normally the volume pedal, as you can see there, is the treadle. It normally does the volume on these devices. Now we've got the send and return that always has to be in place, at least on standard settings. We're not going to touch that today. All you need to know, it's a decent send and return. If you want one, there's one there. So then moving along, we've got a distortion in here. We've got a top secret overdrive, which is the what was the top secret? That's the DOD. So the top secret DOD, I can't remember what it was called now, but anyway, yeah, the 2-button one. It's a popular one, but that could be anything. Could be a tube screamer. You know, go to a tube screamer and you've got the full 3-button setup there. You've got the tone, the gain, and the level, of course. And once again, these can all be changed by snapshots. So you could potentially have snapshot 1 with a really, I just saved them, by the way. Snapshot 1 is really well overdriven. We go to snapshot 2, and you can see it's still on snapshots there. And we want just a little bit of crunch. Then I save, and then when I go to snapshot 1, it automatically loads in those previous settings. Really powerful feature, especially on a unit like this that perhaps hasn't got the pedigree as the bigger ones. You can really get a lot of mileage out of this. Now then, let's move on to the amp, and once again, these are HX amps, the HX technologies in here. We've got every parameter that you've got on the Helix, they're on here. And once again, the snapshot controllable or any other, including the external foot pedals in and outs you can use. So, you know, we've got the HX effects like the sag, the bias X, the ripple, the Horman, and all that, you know. And depending which amp you've got in here, will depend on what features are available. I mean, for example, you put the Grammatico in there, and you'll see suddenly you've got a hell of a lot more control. This was a great amp. I mean, you've got the switches here. Once again, you've got the overdrive there. You can just switch that on, and you use that on a snapshot, and it'll really open up these options. So definitely look at these. You look at what you can do. Get a little bit creative with these snapshots. And the way that you control this device. And I think some of these limitations that probably you think are there disappear. Then we've got the speaker placement. Again, this got the cab update, exactly the same as the Helix. So these are all the new cabs. These are also the legacy cab support. So you've also got those cabs. However, I don't know why you'd use them because we've got these new ones. And whilst you're in the app, you can just grab the microphone and put it where you want it. Very similar to the new Stadium wear, and obviously how you used to do it on the Helix. You can change the microphone to whatever you want. They're all there, as you can see. You know, you want that SM7s. There you go. That's what it is. You can choose the distance by just using the sliders. You can do it that way. Or you can just grab the microphone and put it roughly, you know. There's no science involved in it, really. It's just when it sounds good, that'll do. You've got your high cut and your low cut and level exactly the same as on the other systems. So your compressors, once again, all controllable, you know, by snapshots and things like that. Really do recommend that you look through this stuff. And needless to say, that's kind of like what we are. The only other thing we've got on this is, obviously, we've got global EQ. The easiest way to do this is to grab, pull those up and down. Reset it. We're not using it. It's switched off at the moment. Sorry, it's switched off now because I don't need it. Again, this is basically your foot switch. As you can see, that's the toe switch from underneath expression 1. Mode, you can't do anything with it. You can't do anything with tap. Then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in that order. Top row to then over to the bottom. You can rename whatever. You can rename it whatever. You can change the colour. Let's have that pink, and this is all reflected on the pedal as well, by the way. And you can reset the name. You can do see all the assignments at the moment, what that's tied to. If I did one, I want to get rid of that. It stays as screen, but let's have a different colour. We'll go back to green, won't we, for a screamer. So I think you can see how versatile it is. What I'll do a few sound demos now, I think, and let me know what you think.